The James Show Podcast.
Tough day today because our top story, not just the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but the fact that we still don't have the shooter in custody. Good Lord. That's another big problem here. We're going to go over a bunch of sound bites and some of the reactions, and then you'll hear my reaction to the reaction. But I did not think, because now we're 24 hours after he was declared dead, I didn't think this guy would still be on the run. I didn't think we wouldn't know who he is. We should be going through his social media profiles by now. We should be going over with a fine-tooth comb every tweet the guy ever made. Where'd he come from? Who'd he vote for? What's his voter registration? Can't even start with any of that. That's crazy. But I have a ton of audio, and it's going to be the bulk of today's show and tomorrow's show because we're not going to get to all of it. But while Charlie Kirk's name is still on everybody's lips, we're all talking about it right now. You can't get away from it. My friend who's a bartender went into her shift early. She just sent me the fact that everyone at the bar is talking about it. We still don't know who this guy is. But I want to, while we're all talking about it, just get as much out there for the people who aren't as familiar with his work. Why is this such a big deal? How did he draw such big crowds? Why is it that he's met Trump several times and ridden on Air Force One? Why is it that all these people seem to be so upset about it? Well, I'll play you some of his audio and you'll understand real quick. If you have anything you'd like to add to it, though, this isn't just going to be a presentation. This is going to be a discussion. Talking to you, it's kind of therapeutic for people like me in times like this. So 800-288-9227. This is David in Bedford. You're on WBAP.
Yes, James. How you doing, sir?
Doing great.
James, I tell you, man, this assassination, that's what it was for sure. We don't know who's behind it, but one thing is certain. Charlie Kirk was getting too close to the heat. He had exposed what's wrong with our country, and it's our academia, it's college, students on campus, and he started making an inroads into that world. People were waking up, college students are waking up, and they, whoever they are, don't like it. Because that can change this country. You change the mindset of the youth, young people in college. They'll point out the professors that are teaching garbage and hatred in this country about our nation and poison the minds of the youth. And Charlie Kirk was getting people to wake up. He was that guy.
Well, and he's more of a threat because Rush Limbaugh would reach more people on a weekly basis. Hell, I probably reach more people on a weekly basis.
Right.
But it's mostly people who are already on Team Red. I'm not converting people in mass numbers. Charlie Kirk was.
And Charlie Kirk, the thing is he was so effective. And that is putting fear. That is striking fear in these people, and they can only respond by doing what happened. I wouldn't even be surprised if this gun they found, I don't know if that's going to be the weapon or not, but it's a diversionary tactic. We may never catch this guy. If this is a hit to knock him out of the way, but for that, what they don't realize, for every Charlie Kirk that falls, 1,000 more are going to rise up because he's so effective.
Are they?
He's changing.
That's left to be seen. Listen, I hope you're correct, but civilizations and societies have risen and fallen over history, and there's nothing special about us that means we can't go through the same decline that everyone else has gone through. And we're doing so many of the same mistakes. And, it's so easy when we read history, we're like, how do these people do this? They're so stupid. They were on top of the world. If they just, held everything in place and stopped making changes, they could have kept the Roman Empire going forever. They could have kept the Ottoman Empire going forever. They could have kept the British Empire going forever.
Yes.
But when
James,
when
our founding fathers made this comment, and I believe it might have been Benjamin Franklin or several that made this statement, that this country was created for a religious people, doing the right things because it's the right thing to do. When nobody's looking, you still do the right thing. But if you take people and you get them to be non-religious, why do you not steal? Well, all the reasons not steal because God says you don't steal. Eventually, if we run out of people who have a moral conscience, a way to say, don't do that, do the right thing, eat courage, like Charlie Kirk said, courage means doing the right thing, even if you don't think it's going to work.
Right. In the modern day version of woke doesn't even have those basic principles. It's okay for you to take the property of your neighbor that they earned and you didn't, if you can deem that they are in a position of privilege and you're a victim of some sort of oppression. You can use the government to go take the goods from your neighbor that they earned and have them give it to you. And it's just stealing by proxy. But that's in direct contravention of the what? The Ten Commandments. Who's trying to do something with the Ten Commandments? Oh, that's right. Texas is. What are we trying to do? Put it in the classrooms so that we can get around. If you don't want to go to church, we'll bring church to you. If you don't want to search out morals, we'll at least put them in front of your face. But the
scary thing right now is Charlie Kirk was, he was a believer for sure, and he wasn't afraid to say that and quote scripture and say the right things. But how many preachers today are willing to stand up and tell it like it is, not trying to put people down, but share with people the way they can change their lives and how sin destroys and all the above? Are they willing to tell it like it is and face the possibility of a bullet, just like Charlie Kirk?
I don't know if we have it left in us, David. This may be just sort of the gradual decline of the American hyperpower status, and we'll go extinct one day. Because, David, I remember all the big talking Christians 5 years ago just laid down and said, if they don't want us to go to church on Sunday, we won't go. Oh, they said there's a disease and it's dangerous. Yeah. Fine. We will just shred our own constitutional rights with no fight, with no pushback, no due process before we let them kick us, our kids out of school. They kicked us out of our own church. You couldn't go to your mother's funeral while they were out rioting in the streets. So if we lay down for that, I'm not so sure we have it left in us. And if we don't have it left in us, we don't deserve to persevere.
You're right.
Yeah.
Thank you, James. God bless you, buddy.
God bless you too, bud. And look, it's not just the fact that, we're falling away from God and religion. And, he's right. The founding fathers did say this system of governance is for a religious people. But that's also the message not of the founding fathers, but of the Old Testament over and over and over again. What happened with Ezekiel and Isaiah and Jeremiah and Daniel and Habakkuk and even the little ones, Obadiah and Hosea? What happened? The people would turn toward God. They would follow the principles. They would live up to their moral covenant. And then eventually, through the generations, they'd fall away. They'd become what? Multicultural and accept other gods. And how's my God any better than other God? Everyone's God's evil. All cultures are equal. No one's better or worse than the other one. They would go into this cult of indiscriminateness and necessarily fall apart when they turned away from God. We are not special human beings. We are susceptible to the same human fallacies. I like to play dumb, but I have no problem admitting my next guest is one of about 6 people I can admit is smarter than me. Evan Sayet's coming on. Now, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination, the manhunt's still underway. Some people are absolutely appalled by the reactions that they're seeing from some of their friends, neighbors, media figures, politicians, public figures, celebrities on social media. Evan Sayet's not surprised at all. In fact, if you digest just a couple of his books, you'll find out that, no, not only is this not a surprise, we could have predicted this. So with that, Evan Sayet, thank you for coming on in this very trying time. Dying to talk to you here because you can do this better than me. Explain how these ghouls can have such a crazy reaction. And I'll just give you an example here. Here's just some rando lady on Twitter.
The best part of this whole goddamn thing is that he is not martyr material, so his death will mean nothing. It will activate no one. It will impact few. It's just great.
It's just great. Kind of ghoulish. Explain.
Well, the Democrat Party, the woke movement, what I have been calling the modern liberal, is not only a cult, but it's a death cult, and it's a death cult with bloodlust. I mean, they are so... the irony, of course, is they believe themselves to be the party of peace and love, but they are in reality the party of violence and hate. And if you remember my original talk, and I know you do, one of my points is that the modern liberal is not only always wrong, he is always as wrong can be. His every belief diametrically opposed to reality. And that is true of their sense of themselves, that they are the party of love and peace, when in reality they are a cult of hatred and violence. the hatred that they have for Charlie Kirk, it isn't based on anything Charlie Kirk said or did. I mean, this was a very peaceful, very loving. I actually knew him rather well, but even so, you don't need to know him to know that civil discourse was in the offing. The problem is that the political left cannot engage in civil discourse because the entire notion behind the cult is that nothing is in any way better or worse than anything else. To understand the political left, you have to understand it is a moral imperative to them that all answers to all questions are known in advance. And all answers to all questions are one and the same: nothing. So to them, nothing can be recognized as good and nothing can be recognized as evil. Nothing can be recognized as good. Nothing can be recognized as bad. Nothing can be recognized as beautiful. And nothing can be recognized as ugly. And in fact, nothing can be recognized as true and nothing can be recognized as false. In fact, in the woke world, in the modern liberal world, people don't even speak of the truth, right? There's your truth and my truth.
Or your lived experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and my lived experience, and everybody's lived experience is not only different, but is equally good, equally right, and equally valid, not only wholly without regard to fact and reason, but even in utter opposition to fact and reason. And so they despise, let me just finish this, they despise Charlie Kirk and Evan Sayet. All right, and not because of anything that we believe, but because we have any beliefs at all. The problem is having no beliefs. The Democrat can't argue in a civil fashion, having come to their positions through the rejection of fact and reason. When it comes time to persuade others, they don't have fact and reason with which to do it. And thus, violence is the only thing that they have. They've got two means of persuasion: demagoguery, which is rhetorical violence to assassinate a person's character. But demagoguery isn't working any longer because they no longer control the means of propaganda, news, and entertainment. And Charlie Kirk had taken away their means of indoctrination, the universities. So Charlie was an obvious target because he had taken away their essential means of indoctrination. And he was hated not because of anything that he said, but because violence is the only thing they have left, because they cannot bring, he famously had that sign, change my mind, prove me wrong.
Prove me wrong was his. Change my mind with Steven Crowder, who does the same thing, who probably is just going to be wrapping himself in bubble wrap all day today.
Well, indeed, and I've got a lot of friends. It struck me years ago how many of my friends actually had to have bodyguards. Ann Coulter would go out with bodyguards. David Horowitz had to go out with bodyguards. The political left doesn't need bodyguards because we're not violent. Even in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, we're not rioting.
Anybody rioting?
The way they did.
Yeah. Any death threats going on? Anything catch on fire suddenly? Anybody get their car keyed like we saw all summer?
And that's
continuing with Evan Sayet. He's a comedian, author, turned satirist, and he is the brains behind the unified field theory of liberalism, which is sort of the theory that's outlined in his first book, Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks. And you were touching on that some in the last segment where you were explaining how they're not allowed to discriminate. And I don't mean discrimination like racial discrimination. I mean like judge and say one thing is better than the other. It's very nihilistic for people who even know what that word means. But there was a great example in a Charlie Kirk clip where some guys were telling him he's hateful because he believes our culture is better than others. Like, oh, how dare you say one culture is better? And it was exactly what you described in the last segment. Listen to this.
Are some cultures better than others? No. What the? Do you think that our culture is equal to Iran? Do you think our culture is the same as the CCP? Western values are superior. Of course they are, obviously. What do you consider Western values? Free speech, separation of powers, consent to the governed, constitutional government, independent judiciary. Okay, why don't we talk about the prison industrial complex? There's so many things wrong with America. That's what I'm saying. Why do people go to prison?
For breaking the law.
There you go. So if there's too many people in prison, they commit too many crimes.
If they are being overfilled, and the prisons are supposed to be...
Anyway, so the debate continues there. But something that, on its face, Evan Sayet, everyone should just say, yeah, you know what, some cultures are better than others. And they just can't even allow their heads to even hold the thought for 5 seconds, Evan. And I thought that was a perfect illustration of your theory.
It is a perfect illustration, and it goes across all lines. They're not allowed to say that anything is any work of art or literature is better than any other. In fact, there's a move on college campuses not only to ban Shakespeare, but to hide the statue. They can't even stand to look at his face. Because if nothing is better than anything else, then anything that you embrace has to be a reflection of your prejudices. You know, if what you are championing, whether it's America, whether it's Christianity, whether it's a work of art, or whether it's a body shape or a body size, anything that you are championing must be a reflection of your bigotries. Because if it's not better than anything else, then it's only prejudice that makes you say it is. So it's simply championing something. All right. He didn't say, this is why I think other nations are equal to America. There is no argument to be made. Western civilization is superior. But once you acknowledge the existence of the superior, then you might have disagreements, you might have fighting, you might have war. The only way to go back to the John Lennon song, and utopia is a world with nothing to kill or die for. Well, the only way to create this utopia where there's nothing to kill or die for is to argue that nothing is in any way better than anything else. And that's at the heart and soul of wokeism. And no matter what the facts, no matter what the reasoning, nothing matters. The answer is known in advance. Nothing is better than anything else. And so Charlie Kirk must be a bigot, because why would he support Western civilization if, by definition, nothing is better than anything else?
It's because he's a white racist, and he only likes Western civilization because he associates it with whiteness, and he's just a burning Klansman at heart.
Indeed, and the flip side of that is, why would anybody oppose anything? So why would I oppose Islamism? It doesn't matter that it's because they're misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic, anti-Semitic. None of those things come into consideration. The only possible reason I could be against Islamism is because I'm an Islamophobe. Because if nothing is worse than anything else, then the only reason I could oppose something, even the smallest qualm, is an irrational fear. And so the only explanation for not being indiscriminate is bigotry or phobia. And thus, not only do they hate you for being a hater, but you are preventing them from living in the utopia they've been promised once indiscriminateness becomes the law of the land. And so you are really the equivalent of the devil. You are the serpent in the Garden of Eden, who, by introducing the notion of good and evil, have condemned man to be kicked out of paradise.
Well, and they're not really nihilistic in their application of statecraft. They're always wanting government to be bigger and for the elites to have more control, and usually some mutated form of socialism. So the indiscriminateness of thought,
only because they envision that as taking the power away from the individual. The less individualism you have, the less differentiation there is, the less individuality there is. And so if your goal is to homogenize everything into nothing, the logical step is to take freedom away from the individual. So they're not really in favor of government. They're opposed to individuality.
That's okay. See, this is why I have you on. All right, Evan Sayet. I had a guy call in the last hour who is just so wrapped up in the exact mindset you talked about. He was pulling the whataboutism. Well, we've got to condemn political violence on all sides. And look, it's not 100% coming from the left. You know, there was the state reps that were assassinated in Minnesota 3 months ago, but it's overwhelmingly from one side. Do you have any advice on how to snap these people out of that?
Well, first, let me offer a way to deal with, because it was William Buckley who said every side is going to have its crazies. All right, anytime you have a large group, you're going to have your crazies. The way to tell whether the crazy is just a lone crazy or a reflection of the movement as a whole is to gauge the response of the mainstream to the acts of the crazies, right? Yes, there might have been somebody from our side who murdered those representatives in Minnesota, But the mainstream in the Republican Party and the conservative movement didn't cheer it. We didn't go online and revel in it. And so the way you can tell the difference is the response of the mainstream to the murder of Charlie Kirk, or the murder of that businessman in New York City, or the murder of that woman on the train in North Carolina. They revel in the murder. And therefore, that is a reflection of the movement, not just of the lone crazy. How do we get them out of it? We are making such good progress in two of the most important ways. And this is why they had to murder Charlie Kirk, because the Democratic Party, this movement is so insane that it cannot exist without these two things. One, indoctrination of the youth. And that comes through academia and education, which the Democrats had fully controlled. And Charlie was changing that, and I believe has changed and will continue to change. And two, the propaganda of the news and entertainment industries, which, thanks to technology, no longer fully rests in the Democratic Party's hands. So without the indoctrination and the propaganda, what we have to do is just keep talking. You know, one of our problems is that we don't want to fight. We live and let live. Let's not upset the family at Thanksgiving. No, we have to talk, because even though we are making great inroads, they still own the media, but we own the truth.
I love it.
That means they can hit 1 million people at once with their lies. We have to be 1 million people telling the truth to one person at a time.
Evan Sayet, thank you very much. Your wisdom was much appreciated on the James Show today. I encourage you all to check out if I know y'all don't read books as much as I tell you to, but his first book, just start there, The Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks. Find him online. He's got some great videos. If you need me to send you links, just send me a Facebook message or an email. I'll hook you up with more stuff from Evan Sayet. Thank you, sir. Mark Lee Van Camp and Robbins now on WBAP. If I had to compare them to anybody, it'd be like Gutfeld. You know, it's not just one guy, barfing out a stream of consciousness like me or like a Rush Limbaugh or a Casey Bartholomew. There's a discussion there. There's a lot of laughs, a lot of sarcasm, a little bit of smarm. Pretty fun. Check them out. Weekdays 11 to 2 on WBAP. We're continuing with the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination. I am still shocked to tell you we do not have a guy in custody. But if you continue through the show, we're going to have a lot of conversations with people who are calling in, but also some of the audio highlights from Charlie Kirk. Because for some of you, I know a lot of you have no idea who this guy is. I want to try and give you a pretty good diet, especially over the next 2 days while it's still the hot topic in the country, and let you know just how big of a loss we experienced yesterday. This is Darren in Oklahoma. You're on WBAP. Hey, Darren.
Hey, James. My biggest concern in all this that I've noticed is they keep calling him a conservative activist. The one thing I'm not hearing anything, I hear plenty about his faith, about him sharing. What I don't hear is him being called a Christian conservative activist. That was just a big part of who he was. He presented the gospel on top of just conservative ideas.
Well, politics, I'm familiar enough with this guy to know that politics are his third most important concern. And this was something that Chris Kyle talked about in his autobiography that he fought about his life over. Like, how do you rank the important things in life? And for Charlie Kirk, it's God, family, country. For Chris Kyle, it was God, country, family. For Chris Kyle's wife, she was on the Charlie Kirk side, and she put family above country. But so politics, yeah, that's not even the second most thing he's animated by. Number one, he talked about faith a lot, and that was the driving platform, the foundation behind most of his political opinions and family opinions and other things that are going on with things that aren't necessarily political, but still like the culture wars and, the birth rates and marriage and the dissolution of the nuclear family and being a good parent and raising kids. He talked about a lot of that, and a lot of it wasn't political. But they go to the political part first. Why? Why do they do that? Because he's on the other side of the political narrative. He's on Team Red, and they want to keep him in arm's distance. They don't want to make him a sympathetic figure. And if they admit that he was first a guy who cared about religion and family over politics, people might be sympathetic to him here in his passing. And that's pretty gross. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's a gross habit, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's not just the liberal media side. I've watched the liberal and conservative, even WBAP, when they were talking about it just a little bit ago. It was conservative activists. Nobody has. Well,
look. If it's a long form program like mine, it deserves a mention. If they've got to squeeze all this into 20 seconds, give them some leeway. Even if it's MSNBC, or even if it's a local TV station or talk radio station or whatever, you got to give those people a little bit of grace, because that's probably the reason that's being thrown in there is because it also gives you the motive on why he was attacked. He wasn't attacked necessarily for being a Christian. He wasn't attacked necessarily for being pro-family. He was attacked because he ran afoul of the Team Blue political agenda, and that's what he ultimately died for. And so I almost think that's a better descriptor. If you can only choose one word when you're talking about how and why he got shot, maybe conservative is the best description to use in the short form.
Well, I see the opposition always cast Christian nationals and all that. They throw that in, and it's like I told my wife. It's
always a bad word. For some, you're right. For some outlets, they always use Christian as if it's a pejorative, like, oh, he's a Christian nationalist. What's wrong with being a nationalist? Nothing. Oh, but if you're a Christian nationalist, that's something bad. Oh, okay. So Christian's a pejorative.
I told my wife last night, they just keep killing us. Whether it was the shooting at the Catholic, my mind went totally blank.
Yeah, the shooting at the Catholic schools when children were praying at mass. Whether it's shooting our ICE agents over here in Alvarado and Brownsville, whether it's stabbing us on the train. We can't stop getting shot at. And it's like, hey, could you stop shooting at us, please? 800-288-9227. We'll continue honoring the legacy and the work of Charlie Kirk, and just trying to work through the aftermath. If there's any updates on the manhunt, I'll be sure to pass them along as soon as I get them to you. So stick around on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.